So I'm just going to pin spotlight myself. Sorry, I haven't done that already. Okay. So yes, child pose on your mat and just see how it feels. Yeah, so you could put your, if your forehead doesn't touch the floor, you could put your hands under your forehead, or you could rest on your elbows and let your head hang and just sort of see how it feels. And it doesn't matter if it's not desperately comfortable to start with, because we're going to do a few things to hopefully make it feel a bit easier. And one of the things I notice when I first come into child pose, if I haven't done anything else, is I might feel a bit of pressure in my forehead. It just, yeah, breathing feels a bit more pressured here. So when you've had, some of you have been there for a few breaths. So if you've just arrived in child pose, give yourself 3 cycles of breath. And then you're going to come onto hands and knees and do some cat movements. Sorry, I've just got to let Hilary in. So hands and knees for some cat. And yeah, we're going to be thinking a lot today about these rounding movements. So as in cat, when you round your back to the ceiling. And also in cat, we do the opposite movement, don't we? We let our spine dip down to the floor. So these latecomers arriving. Yeah, so rounding and dipping your spine in cat pose. Hi, everyone who's just arriving. You haven't missed lying down. We started in child pose, which I know is a terrible shock. And we're just doing a little bit of cat. So a little bit of rounding and dipping. So nothing too dramatic. And what we're going to do from cat pose is we're just going to add in a little bit of rocking backwards and coming forwards again. So what I'd like you to do is round your back to the ceiling and stay rounded to rock your hips back over your heels. And then when you come forwards again, just let your spine dip down a little bit. Doesn't have to be a huge amount. So rounding your back, staying rounded to rock back. And then as you come back to your sort of starting point, just let your spine dip down a little bit. And it might be helpful to bend your elbows to get that movement a bit, make that movement a bit easier. So rounding up, rocking back. When you come forwards, dipping your spine down, you might bend your elbows a little. Probably not loads though. So just do that a few more times. Rounding up, rocking back, staying rounded, dipping forwards, dipping down, sorry, to come forwards. Good. Okay. So maybe do that a couple more times. Rounding up, rocking back, dipping down to come forwards. And then what I'd like you to do the next time you round your back to the ceiling is stay rounded and this time travel all the way back into child pose, but rounding your back. And do remember in child pose that you can take your knees quite wide apart, yeah? So if that's more comfortable, particularly if you've eaten a substantial breakfast or anything like that. And just settle down in child pose again for 3 cycles of breath and see how it feels. And how can you make yourself as comfortable as possible with your arms? So again, it might be that you rest your forehead on, you stack your hands one on top of the other, rest your forehead on the top of your hands. Good. Elbows on the ground, let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Just notice how it feels. Lovely. Okay, we're going to come back onto hands and knees again. And we're going to do some other things. Maybe when you come back onto hands and knees, first of all, just lengthen each leg out behind you in turn and tuck your toes under. And it's actually fine at the moment if you have socks on. So, well, having socks on makes me feel a bit more, what should I say, sort of woolly and vague. So sometimes having bare feet makes you feel a bit more alert. Now, what we're going to do is come into a couple of different versions of fox pose. So first of all, we're going to stay there for several breaths. So from hands and knees, you're going to lengthen one leg back behind you. And this time your foot comes off the floor. And then you're lengthening the opposite arm forwards and stay there and breathe. And I always find this one surprising. I've just got to let Alice in. Surprisingly challenging. Yeah, so make sure it's your opposite arm and leg, or you might find it even more challenging. Make sure you're looking down at the ground next to the hand that's on the floor. Notice what happens to your breathing as you stay here. Mine tends to get a bit laboured. And do come down and swap sides in your own time. But yeah, I would quite like you just to sort of see if you can stay here perhaps longer than you might. You know, what's it like to have 3 cycles of breath here? At the end of 3 cycles of breath, do you need to come down? We're really trying to stabilise ourselves, yeah. And of course, if it feels uncomfortable somewhere, particularly the lower back, then don't stay there. When you come back down, sit back over your heels. So come into kneeling, or just come into up kneeling if kneeling is not so good, and give your hands a shake out. And just be here if this is better. Now, I just want to show you a variation of fox pose we're going to do, which some of you might have done with me. So now it's going to be more dynamic. We're moving. And when you come to here, you could breathe in. And then you're going to put your hand down and round your back to the ceiling and gather your knee in. And we're going to repeat that 5 times on each side, if that feels okay. You don't have to breathe in the way I just said, but I find that works best for me. So breathing in, lengthening into fox pose. As you exhale, your hand comes onto the floor. You round your back to the ceiling and draw your knee into your chest. And we'll repeat that. Breathing in, exhaling, breathing in. So really focus on that rounding up movement. Exhaling. I've already lost count, so let's do a couple more. Good. And if you want to, you could sit down back on your heels for a moment before you do the other side, although it might confuse you which is the other side. So perhaps don't rest for too long. And then move on to the other side. So breathing in, if that works for you, lengthening into fox pose, and then the hand comes onto the floor as you exhale, round your back to the ceiling, gather your knee into your chest. Breathing in, exhaling. If you can count to 5, I'm finding it rather hard to count more than 3 at the moment. You can do that. Breathing in, exhaling, once or twice more. And then on hands and knees, exhale, round your back to the ceiling, and again, rock back into child pose. Round it, yes, by rounding your back. And just see how it feels to settle into child pose now. No things to notice. How does your lower back feel? Maybe in all those rounding movements, we've helped to lengthen out the lower back a little bit. Looks very nice. How does your breathing feel? And just generally, how comfortable do you feel in child pose? And if you don't feel desperately comfortable, of course, come into kneeling for a couple more breaths. And from child pose, we're then going to make our way up into standing. So you can just come up into standing in a way that's comfortable for you. And we're going to focus a bit more on these sort of folding forward movements. And I think when I was planning this class, which Beata did with me as well last night on Thursday evening, but I was planning it yesterday, I was just trying to think what is really relaxing. And in fact, I've been thinking about it the night before, lying in bed, not feeling so relaxed. And these movements where we sort of round forwards, yeah, can be quite calming and soothing. So in standing, have your feet a little distance apart. And then we're going to come into a few forward bends, just thinking about how can we really round and soften in the upper back. So the first thing you're going to do is have your hands on your breastbone. And you're going to start to roll forwards, letting your shoulders roll in, and then bending your knees. So we're really trying to feel we're sort of rounding forwards. And you're going to bring your elbows onto your thighs. So your knees are bent, you're resting your elbows on your thighs. Can you feel your back is nice and round? And from here, if it's okay for your lower back, you could release your arms to the floor, but have your knees quite bent so your chest is close to your thighs. And just have a few breaths in this forward bend, trying to feel this sort of long curve in the back of your body, the back of your spine, letting your head go, letting your arms go. And let a breath come in. You can either roll back up into standing, or if your lower back feels that it needs a bit of extra support, walk your hands up the fronts of your legs. So we come back up into standing. And we'll repeat this exactly the same thing again. So that starting point, hand on the breastbone, we're trying to let our upper backs round. Yeah, we're not trying to hold ourselves straight. So you're letting your shoulders roll forwards as you roll forwards, bending your knees, coming to this little place where we've got our elbows on our thighs, our back is rounded, we're letting our head hang. And then if you like, from there you can go further, releasing your arms to the floor, letting your chest come close to your thighs. So your knees are nice and bent. Let the head go. Feel the weight rooting down through your feet, particularly your heels. One more cycle of breath down there. And then on an exhalation, rolling up or walking your hands up the front of your legs. Again, just trying to have this feeling of being rounded. We're going to do that once more, just before we go back down, just see how it feels to be back up in standing. And I'm always interested, if I do these rounding movements, then I just feel a bit wider in the front of my chest without a feeling of force. Let's go down once more. And this time we'll go all the way into a squat, if you like. So if you did want something to go under your heels for a squat, grab a book or a cushion, but you can let your heels come up, that's fine. So last time, hands on the breastbone, letting your shoulders roll forwards, looking down. Keep really thinking about rounding through the back. Elbows coming onto your thighs. So we've got this sort of soft curve in the spine. And then we can release our arms down to the ground. And if we come into a squat, we're just continuing the bending of the knees. So our chest is close to our thighs. We're letting our knees bend forwards over our footprints. If our heels come up, that's absolutely fine. When you're in your squat, if you can look back behind yourself, sort of between your legs and feet, that will help with this feeling of curving through your spine. And then we'll reverse the movements. So start to send your heels down and your sit bones up towards the ceiling. So you come back into your forward bend, chest close to your thighs. And then as you exhale, either walking your hands up your legs or rolling up into standing. And we arrive up in standing. And I suppose I was just thinking about how this time of year we're probably a bit huddled up, and to go with that movement rather than trying to resist it can actually be more relaxing. Now, in standing, have a look at your feet. Have them a little distance apart, and then close your eyes so you stop looking at your feet. And you're going to rock from side to side here, a little bit of swaying. Just let your arms hang. So feeling your weight rocking over one foot and then the other. And in a moment, we're going to come to stand on one foot. So as you're rocking from side to side, maybe just see which foot do you feel more drawn to standing on. So we're going to come into a standing balance, and you can choose which side you do first. So at this point, you're going to open your eyes. And what we're going to do on each side, just sort of simply, is we're going to shift our weight onto our chosen foot. And then we're folding the other knee in towards our chest, and we're holding onto our leg around the back of the thigh. So your leg could be lower down, or some of you, the knee might fold in towards you. One of the things to think about here is we're not rounding forwards, but also neither are we leaning back. So we're trying to, that's good, stay upright, support our leg with our hands. Good. And again, remember with these ones, if you do feel wobbly, then come to a wall, yeah? So you can support your leg with one hand. Good. And just see how that feels. Very nice. Okay, and then we'll try the same thing on the other side. So, and these movements can be quite challenging for the hip flexors. We can start to get a bit sort of tense here. So shifting our weight onto the second side. So that's why you're really using your hands and arms to support your leg as much as possible. So the hip flexors, all the sort of muscles and tendons in the front of your hip joint can maybe switch off and quieten. Yes, so B, particularly on that side where, you know, it's a bit busier there, it might be that you want to use the wall so that you can then really focus on that sort of quietening of the muscles in the front of the hip joint. Okay. And the same for anyone. Now, I'll just come down and have a little shake out and I'll show you where you're going to go with this, because there's a couple of options, some of you might guess, not one that we do that often. So from here, I want you to see what's it like to try to straighten that leg out, still supporting it. Now, some of you, Al, with very long hamstrings, might find that you could catch your big toe, yeah? Not so easy for me. And the other thing to be aware of here is try not to lean back. So as you straighten your leg, try not to lean back. And again, do use the wall if you need to. So you're coming back to side one. You're folding, come back to exactly where we were, folding that knee in towards us, finding your balance at that point. And then how does it feel if you start to straighten that leg out? And you know, you're not really trying to hold it straight. I would just straighten it and then release it. Notice how it feels in the sort of fold of the hip joint. Try to take the weight of your leg as much as possible. Yeah. Good. So it's not one that we do a lot, but yeah, one that I thought we would do today. So this sort of follows with this, our theme today, this sort of folding in, rounding forward. So let's try the other side, which probably, as for me, this is going to be your slightly trickier side. We chose hopefully to do our easy side first. So come back to holding around underneath your leg, supporting that leg, trying to find your balance, moving to a wall if the balance is the issue, and then what's it like if you try to straighten that leg? Now my knee is much more grumbly on this side, so yeah, if you get all these sort of clicky and clunky things in your knee, just don't try to straighten it too much. Okay, well done. Come down, have a little shake out. And then come back into another forward bend. I think we can't do enough forward bends in terms of calming ourselves and releasing our lower back. So just as we did, it could be your hand on your breastbone, your shoulders rolling forwards, the knees bend. We look down. We might have a cycle of breath with our elbows on our thighs. And then we can release all the way down. But what I'm doing today is really keeping my knees quite bent. So my chest is coming close to my thighs and it's very soft and relaxing. Good. A couple of breaths in your forward bend and then you can roll back up when you're ready. And have a little shake out. So we're going to carry on with some forward bending and standing, but with our feet in a different position. So if you come towards the end of your mat and start with your feet a little distance apart, and then we're going to step 1 foot forwards here. So you've stepped forwards. It's not this sort of teeny weeny step, and it's not like a massive stride. It's somewhere in the middle. So taking a sort of balanced, the middle way. And then a little bit of rocking forwards and back. Just encouraging ourselves to settle down here. So we want both feet pointing forwards. And these movements really support other things we do, like running and walking and cycling. So what we're going to do is really helpful for that, but particularly helpful if our feet can point in the direction we're facing. So from here, you're going to let your front knee bend. And we're going to come into a forward bend over the front leg. So first of all, again, you can bend forwards and rest your elbows on that bent front leg. So have your back leg straight for the moment. And then from here, you can go a bit lower, if that's okay, so that your chest comes closer towards that bent front knee. And you release your head and your arms down to the ground. And you have a couple of breaths here. Letting the head go, letting the arms go. Now from here, one of the interesting challenges is coming back up. So if your lower back's at all vulnerable, you might want to walk your hands up your front leg. But if it's not, what's it like as you exhale? Can you sink down into your feet and come back up into standing without wobbling all over the place? Good. And it does make a difference if you've got this sideways distance, yeah, between your feet. If your feet are like this, then of course you're going to wobble. Let's do the other side. So come back to feet side by side. Step the other foot forwards. Do a little bit of rocking forwards and back. So this is just this sort of dropping ourselves down into our feet. Good. Feeling the feet on the floor. That's very nice. And then eventually settling, both feet planted, bending the front knee. And then how does it feel to go into that sort of two-stage forward bend? We come to rest on that bent front leg, rest our elbows on the thigh. We could stay there, or we can go lower, release down, let the head go, let the arms go, our chest comes closer to that bent front leg, thigh. Have a couple of breaths there. And then again, how does it feel to come back up? Walking your hands up the front of your leg if you need to support your back, or on an exhalation, sinking down into your feet, coming back up. Good. We're going to go a little bit further with that now on side one. So come back to both feet side by side. Step the second foot forwards. And maybe I'll just show you quickly. We're going to go forwards like we did. And then we're going down into this sort of sprint type position. And then we're going to reverse the movement and come all the way back up. Okay. So bent front knee, straight back leg, folding, resting on your elbows on your front leg thigh, folding down a bit lower into the forward bend. And then starting to bend your back knee. So your back heel comes up. Now this sprint position is quite challenging for the foot. So you might not find your back knee comes onto the ground and your toes stay tucked under. It's fine if that knee stays up. Have a couple of breaths down here. And then start to reverse the movement. So from here, keep your chest close to your thigh and your front leg. Let the back leg lengthen out. Send the back heel towards the floor. And then either walking your hands up your front leg or sinking into your footprints, coming up into standing. Good, very nice. And then swap sides, we'll do the same thing on the other side. So step the other foot forwards. Good. Bending the front knee, back leg stays straight to start with. Folding forwards, elbows come to rest on your front leg thigh. And just at this point, try and feel steady. So at all points, we're trying to feel very steady. We may have wobbles, and that's fine. Releasing down into the forward bend. Starting to bend your back knee. Letting your back heel come up, coming down into the sort of sprint position. See how that feels for a breath or two. And then reversing the movement, coming back up. Back into the forward bend, let your head go. And then sinking down into your footprints, walking your hands up your legs, or just sinking, coming all the way up. Good, yes. And then having a bit of a shake out. And just to contrast with that, you're going to come back into a forward bend with your feet side by side. So a very simple forward bend. So hand on your breastbone, letting your shoulders roll forwards. That's it, letting your knees bend. See how it feels now. Elbows can rest on your thighs or releasing the head and arms down to the ground. Keeping the knees quite bent. Give yourself a breath or two in this forward bend. How does it feel through your lower back? And as you exhale, you can sink into your heels, roll up into standing. Good. And in standing, we're going to come on to the breath of joy, which we were doing a couple of weeks ago, which is our sort of uplifting, at least the sun is shining today, uplifting little breathing exercise to beat the January lockdown blues. So have your feet a bit wider apart and your knees are bent. So we're doing this sort of Tai Chi type stance where we're letting the tailbone drop. And don't worry if you haven't done this before. It's quite simple, but we do 3 arm movements on a single inhalation. So you either, if you run out of breath, have an extra breath or just move fairly speedily, but in a relaxed way. So we breathe in and take the arms forwards. We carry on breathing in to take the arms wide, and we carry on breathing in to take the arms up, and then exhale down into a forward bend. Floppy, good. Okay, and then back up again. We're going to do this 5 times in total. So breathing in, arms up in front, breathing in, arms wide, breathing in, arms up, and then forwards. Obviously, don't swing forwards if that's not good for your lower back. Breathing in, arms in front, breathing in, arms wide, breathing in, arms up, and then I think it's 2 more times. Breathing in, breathing in, breathing in, and one more time. Try and feel really soft in your body as you do this last one. So relaxed shoulders, breathing in, breathing in, breathing in, and you could stay down for an extra breath if you like in this forward bend. Good. Lovely. And then sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing. So we'll, I think as I said a couple of weeks ago, we'll come back to this one throughout these winter months. So I think we need a bit of a lift. Now, we're going to be coming down through a forward bend, dog pose, and doing some one-leg dogs. I just want to show you, because there's a little sequence I've come up with. So maybe just watch for a moment. What you're going to do is, first of all, on each side, bend your knee into your chest and relax your foot. So that's quite important. Then it's bend the knee into the chest and then send the knee back and up. Okay, and do that on each side. And then the final one, bend the knee to the chest, send the knee back, send the knee up, lengthen into your heel. Okay, so do that on each side. I'll talk you through when you get down there. So come towards the back of your mat. Just feeling a nice sort of standing position before we rush into that forward bend. And let's to come down into this forward bend. Let's bring our hands into prayer pose and let's do a sort of lengthening upwards movement. So let the breath come in. Exhale, take your arms down and then up, and just feel lovely and long here. And then start to round forwards and down into your forward bend. If the forward bend feels good, have a couple of breaths there. But if you're ready to move on into dog pose, walking your hands forwards into your dog until you end up in what feels like a good length for you. And then remember, we've got those sort of 3 different, so we sort of build on these movements. The first one is to fold one knee into your chest and keep your foot floppy and relaxed. And do the same thing on the other side. And remember, these are movements. We're not trying to stay there for a long time. And then we fold the knee into the chest. And then we send the knee back behind us and up. We tried that on each side. So fold the knee into the chest, relax the foot, send the knee back and up. And then we can try final one. Fold the knee into the chest, send the knee back, send the knee up, and then lengthen out the leg. So you're stretching into your heel. Very nice, really reaching away into that heel. And obviously do that on both sides. If it doesn't work for you, just adapt. Don't do movements that's uncomfortable. And yes, exactly, Hilary. From those one-leg dog poses, then fold down into child pose again. And come back to, in child pose, 3 cycles of breath. We're actually going to revisit in a moment those one-leg dogs, if you like, from the ground. So if you don't like, you don't have to. So come into child pose. See how it feels to settle onto the ground. To feel the breath come in, feel the breath leave you 3 times. So give yourself enough time in child pose that your breathing can sort of settle and quieten if it got more laboured in the one-leg dog poses. You know, these things are so personal. And what we're going to do now is we're going to come back into dog pose, and you could do that little sequence of one-leg dog poses again if you like. But what I would say is just reserve making up your mind about what you're going to do until you get into dog and see how it feels. Because it might feel really nice just to be in a very sort of quiet, simple dog pose. So from hands and knees, have your hands quite nice and wide apart, big handprints on the floor. Tuck your toes under, rock your hips up and back into dog. And let yourself arrive in dog for a couple of breaths and just, see. Try and let your body decide what you'd like to do, whether it's just being in dog and breathing, or whether it's revisiting those one-leg dogs. So remember, there's the knee can fold into the chest with a nice floppy foot. You do that on each side. Then the knee can fold into the chest, and then we send the knee back behind us and up and out. And again, think about these things. These are movements. We're not trying to stay there or hold anything. We're just exploring in our body. And if something doesn't feel right, then we stop. We don't do it. And then the last one, the knee folds in. We relax the foot. We send the knee back, up and out. And then we reach into our heels, straightening that back leg. And that's, yes. Again, very nice. Very nice. So that's it. And then folding down again. Well, I was going to say child pose or kneeling, whichever you prefer. Good. Just let yourself settle and quieten in child pose or kneeling. So come back to having, very nice leg there, Donna, good. Come back to having 3 cycles of breath. So feeling the movement of the breath through your body 3 times. When we come to feeling our breath in this way, it's just about giving ourselves this little sort of moment of focusing and allowing everything to slow down. So we give the inhalation the opportunity to really expand within us. And the out breath the opportunity to empty us completely. Okay. From here, you're going to come onto hands and knees and just lengthen each leg out behind us, or behind you rather. We're going to do a kneeling twist now, just quite a simple kneeling twist. But if you're not comfortable, so if you I mean, first of all, if you're not comfortable in kneeling, you could put a cushion between your bottom and your heels, and that might help. Or if it's really not good, then just be up here. If you're going to be up on your knees to do your twist, I would personally probably do quite a loose, easy sort of swinging thing. If you're sitting down on your heels, and this is just my personal preference, I would probably just turn one way and have a few breaths here. And you could equally, you know, you could be swinging from side to side, sitting down and kneeling if you prefer. Just again, you know, try to get a sense of what would be nice for your body right now. And in these kneeling twists, it's about trying to release some of the tightness between our shoulders in the upper back. And also let the shoulders soften and drop. So do turn both ways. Good. I was realising this one that I'm turning away from you. Far too late. And good. Come back to the centre. And what you're going to do now is actually lie down onto your belly. And from all these movements where we've rounded forwards, we're going to see how does it feel to let the front of the body open out. And yeah, see how it feels lying on your belly. So you can have your hands and your arms wherever you like. I tend to have my hands one on top of the other and rest my cheek or my forehead on my hands, but you don't have to do that. It's really nice to give your pelvis, so your bottom, a bit of a wiggle from side to side. That can just make everything feel a bit more relaxed around the lower back. And then see, how does it feel to have a couple of breaths? Just feeling that the front of your body is opening because the ground is there and you're resting down onto the ground. And then staying on your belly, if you like this one, and if you don't know, you can try it out. The one where we bend our knees, we take the soles of our feet towards the ceiling, and then we tilt our feet from side to side. And yeah, see how that feels for you if your lower back doesn't like it. Very nice, Alison, to see we have some younger members joining us today. So, letting the feet tilt from side to side. Good. And of course, yeah, if your lower back doesn't like it, then don't do it. That's what I was going to say. Good. And then again, you can let your feet come back down onto the ground and just have another breath or two lying on your belly. And if, like me, you might be thinking, oh, this is rather nice. Chance for a lie down. And then before we, not all, maybe some of us possibly fall asleep there, you're going to come back up. So you might fold into child pose if you like, and then we're going to come into a sort of sitting position towards the fronts of our mat. So we're coming back to a bit more of rounding through the back of our body. And so we're in this position here, and it could be that you just start, so we've got knees bent, my feet are on the floor, my feet are a little distance apart. And first of all, we can try just doing a sort of forward bend here, letting the head hang. Trying to feel how the back is rounded. And then we're going to do a little bit of movement here where we slide our hands from our feet towards our knees and we look down all the time, basically. We lean back, that's it. So we lean back, we look down. We slide our hands from our feet to our knees. And we feel how our back is curved and rounded. We'll do that one a couple more times. And then next time, so the next time you slide your hands to your knees, you're going to bring your hands around the back of your knees and you're going to let yourself rock back and then look forwards to come up. So just do a little bit of this now with your hands around the back of your knees, letting yourself rock back. And so as you rock back, look at your belly. And as you come up, look forwards. So it involves a little bit of momentum, but you're not, you know, you're not rocking wildly around. So leaning back, looking at your belly, looking forwards to come back up. Good, just see how that feels. Very nice. So do it a couple more times. So look down at your belly. It's helpful in these to think about your back being rounded, because that is obviously going to help you roll more if your back is round. Okay. Maybe once more. We're going to come back to this. You've got a little break for a moment. Lean back on your arms and give your legs a bit of a lengthen out. And then I wanted us to visit another balance. So I suppose this is another variation of what we were doing in standing. But we're balancing on our sit bones now. So what we're trying to do, so now we are trying to keep our back straight, because we're trying to balance on our sit bones, wrap our arms around the back of our legs and balance here. So obviously, if you let your back round out, you're probably going to do what we were just doing a moment ago. But we're trying to not do that. We're trying to balance on our sit bones. And then we could see what's it like to then straighten one leg a bit. Again, if you straighten your leg a lot and it moves away from your chest, you are likely to roll backwards, yeah? You could try straightening both legs, but yeah, I'm keeping my knees quite bent so my chest stays close to my thighs and my back stays straight. If your legs straighten out a lot, then we come into that rolling back. So it might be, we just try and straighten the legs slightly, but we still try and keep our balance. Now this one is quite, what you might feel like I do, is it gets a bit that you're hanging on in the hip flexor. This is the hip flexor, what we feel here in the fold of the hip joint. So lean back on your arms a moment and give your legs a little roll out. So one way of sort of helping with that is trying to catch our feet or our ankles. And, we're all made so differently. So one way that works for me is from cobbler pose. If I catch my big toes here and then try to come up into the balance, yeah? But it might be that you catch your ankles or you catch your heels. So somehow we reach in between our feet, and then we catch our feet or we catch our ankles and we try to lengthen our legs up. Good, good. And by holding the feet, very nice, yes, beautiful. This pose is called heron, I think, for Krotchasana, heron. So maybe it's the sort of elegance of those wading birds. We might not feel very elegant doing it. But yes, if we can catch a hold of our feet, then sometimes that helps the hip flexors be a little bit more relaxed. But yeah, nice. You look like you could be there all day. So do lean back onto your arms and give your legs a little bit. Very nice. And we're then going to come back to rounding our back. So back to this one where we were rocking back, coming up. So very different feeling. We're not trying to balance on our sit bones now. We're trying to roll off the back of them and then come up again. And as you probably all know, this one leads on into our lovely, we call boat pose, which is another balance. So we can be rolling back. We're trying to balance on the sort of the back of ourselves and then lengthening our legs out. So yeah, so strong work for the abdominals. We'll try it 3 times. And I suppose what we're trying to do in this one is balance. So we're not going too low down and trying to find a place where we can balance on the sort of, where is it? We're sort of balancing somewhere around the sort of very top of the back of the pelvis, the back of the rib cage, sort of between the ribs and the pelvis. So we can try again. Rolling back. Oh, I think that might be, I think we can do one more time, and from this time you can lie down. So you finally get to lie down. So rolling back, rolling back. Not an easy place to breathe or speak. Oh, yes. And then let yourselves lie down. And when you do come to collapse on the floor, do whatever you like with your legs. Yeah. and just whatever feels right. So it could be your legs long, it could be your knees bent, it could be your knees folded into your chest. Oh yes, shaking your legs out, Alice. So just let yourself have a couple of quiet breaths. And then what I always find I want to do after that one is to feel the weight of my head on the floor and then gently let my head roll to the right and to the left so that you're easing out the back of your neck. And or easing out the front of your neck as well, because our muscles in the front of the neck have to hold on in that last pose. So now we want to let them release. Good. And then find a comfortable place to let the back of the head settle down and bring your hands onto the front of your body and gather your attention into your breathing. So feeling the movement of your breath in the front of your body. And as we've done throughout this class on several occasions, I'd like you to feel 3 cycles of breath lying down on your back. Hands on the front of your body, feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. Okay, and then from here, you're going to fold both knees into your chest and hold around the top of your knees with your arms. That's it. You can do a little bit of rocking from side to side if you like. So it's a bit like we're in child pose on our backs now. And just also in this nice position where we can rock from side to side, or we can circle around the back of our pelvis. And usually this feels like quite a nice sort of massage we can do to ourselves. And we're going to do a twist from here. So I'd like you to keep your right knee folded into your chest and lengthen your left leg out on the floor. And let that left leg be sort of long and heavy and relaxed. And then you're going to swap your arms over. So you're supporting your right knee with your left hand. And your right arm is going to come onto the floor at shoulder height. And we want to keep that right shoulder settled on the floor. And we're then going to let the right knee start to rock across the body, so that over to the left. So the back of your pelvis comes away from the floor. You're letting your right knee rock over towards the left. It's probably not going to come down onto the floor. You can make a little support for your knee with, if you have your right elbow, your left elbow on the floor, and support your right knee with your left hand. Sorry, it's a lot of lefts and rights. And have a few breaths in this twist. Good, that's nice. Yes, and some of you, it can be quite helpful to let your head roll towards your outstretched arms. So that's towards the right, isn't it? And the other thing some of you might like to do is to straighten out your top leg. So that's it, but keeping it sort of where it is. So you're not bringing it up into the air. And if you do, some of you might find that that leg will come onto a chair or a sofa or a bed if you do straighten out your top. Exactly, B, yes, I was thinking you had that sofa there very handily. And do come back. So sometimes this twist isn't one you necessarily want to stay in that long. You might come back to the center, and I think possibly lengthen out both legs before we do the other side, or fold both knees in. We're going to do that in a moment anyway. Good. And yes, if you found it very helpful to take your leg onto a sofa or a bed, you could always flip around on your mat. So when we do the other side, your leg can also go onto that surface. If that makes sense. So when you've lengthened both legs out, fold both knees back in towards your chest. Do a little bit of rocking there, a little bit of rocking side to side. And then this time it's going to be the left knee that stays folded in towards you and the right leg that you lengthen out on the floor. So then we swap our arms over, we support that folded in left knee with the right hand. We bring our left arm onto the floor at shoulder height. And that left shoulder is going to stay settled there. As we exhale and start to rock our left knee over towards the right, letting the back of the pelvis come off the floor. And then, if it works for you, you can have your right elbow on the floor and your right hand makes a little sort of shelf or ledge for your left knee to rest on. And again, if you like to straighten out that top leg, that's something to play around with. And it might be that you straighten the top leg and think, oh no, it's better with my knee bent. Also, like I said, I find it's not one that I want to stay in for ages and ages. Good. And then rolling onto your back, maybe lengthen both legs out again. And that's it, lie long. And you can also then fold both knees into your chest. Do a little bit of rocking from side to side and also take your legs and arms up towards the ceiling and give them a shake out. Very nice. So we're going to finish with just a very simple breathing exercise, apanasana, which is lying on our backs like this. But if you wanted to put on anything warmer, socks, jumpers, because we'll do apanasana and then we'll just lie down for a little bit of quiet breathing. So yes, good to be warm. So when we come to, there's no rush, but when we come to apanasana, apana, in the ancient yoga text, apana is the energy of the sort of around here of the belly, the energy of sort of the belly of elimination. And I suppose apanasana, this little exercise, works on that area. And we're going to be moving, we're going to be starting with our knees folded into our chest. It's very, very simple. It's as much about our breathing as the movement. So when you put your warm things on, you can come back onto your back, fold your knees into your chest, bring your hands onto your knees. And if we're thinking about apanasana being about, I suppose, this energy of elimination, we're really focusing on our out breath. So you bring your hands onto your kneecaps with your fingers pointing towards your toes. So as we breathe in, we move the knees away from us and let the arms straighten out, but we don't let the hands slide off the knees. And then as you exhale, you fold your knees back into your chest and you just really think about emptying through the belly as you exhale. And we'll repeat this 6 times. So breathing in, the knees move away. Exhaling, the knees move in towards you, and really stay with that out breath and this feeling of emptying. The breath leaves you, the belly empties. Breathing in, exhaling. So I think 3 more times, and just really slowing it down. Good. That's nice. Keep your feet relaxed, good. Breathing in, the knees move away from you. exhaling, the knees moving towards you. So not the knees away from each other, the knees move away from your chest as you breathe in. Yeah. Oh, Sheila, you're taking the knees away from each other. So the knees are moving away from your chest as you breathe in. So that's it. So as you breathe in, that's it. The knees move that way. And as you breathe out, the knees fold in towards you. Sorry for that confusion. Good. Good. And that's nice. Very nice. And when you've done that 6 times, then you're going to settle yourselves down, either with your feet standing on the floor or with your legs long. So however is most comfortable for you. And you might start, when we think about settling down, maybe you start with noticing how your head and your neck feel. And you could come back to some of those little movements of letting your head roll to the right and to the left. And if the back of your neck feels very tight, you could pick up your head in your hands and gently lengthen out your neck and then place your head back onto the floor. Just, deciding whether you're going to lie with your knees bent or your legs long, or you could even, if you've got a sofa or a chair or a bed, put your lower legs up on one of those things. And then your hands, you can either rest your arms by your sides or bring your hands onto the front of your body. And having your hands on the front of your body can help with this gathering of our attention into our breathing. So one last time today, I'd like us to gather our attention into our breath and feel 3 cycles of breath moving through us. So this sort of focus of feeling the breath in our body wherever we feel it most clearly. Feeling the breath coming in, feeling the breath emptying us, leaving. And giving each in and out breath plenty of time and space. These 3 breaths can take as long as they want. And when we've felt these 3 cycles of breath and had that sort of quite focused attention, then let your awareness just be a bit more expansive. So let your awareness expand out into the whole of your body. So you can sense the back of your head on the floor, the back of your shoulders on the ground, either elbows resting down. The feeling of the back of your pelvis giving the heavy weight of its bones to the floor. And then depending how you have your legs organised, either your footprints on the floor if your knees are bent, or if your legs are long, then you feel parts of the back of the leg in contact with the floor and the heels, giving their weight down. We can also sense our skin. So maybe particularly the bare skin. Might just be your face if you're under a blanket, feeling the air on your skin. Or maybe feeling the contact of the blanket on your hands. And beyond our bodies, beyond our skin, what is in the field of our awareness? Maybe the light today, beautiful light this sunny day. It's maybe sounds, both near and more distant. Maybe the presence of animals or other members of our family. And of course, within us, there are thoughts, feelings, images, sensations that arise and fall all the time. I'm just going to give you another minute or so of lying quietly, just allowing everything that's present to be present. And I shall ring my singing bowl 3 times in a moment, and you can just stay where you are until we get to the silence at the end of the 3rd sound. So thank you, everyone. I think I've got one of Donna's cats right in front of a camera. I was thinking, what is that? What is that funny furry thing? So your cats.
Yeah, thanks, Kara. Thank you
Thank you very much, Kara.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Enjoy the sun, everyone. So
Yeah.
Not raining.
a break from Storm Christoph, isn't it? Or Storm Rudolph. My daughter came in and said, Storm Rudolph happening.
Yeah, somebody said there's going to be snow. Somebody on one of my
Ooh.
groups said